What I would recommend is finding somebody that you align with so well that you don't feel like you need to fight for anything. Hi guys, my name is Shayla. If this is your first time here, I talk about motherhood, I talk about pregnancy, we do things a little bit granola, a little hippie. I have an 18-month-old, she's almost 2, and I'm a month away from delivering. 36 weeks filming this, 37 probably when you see it. Oh yeah, 37 when you see it. Oh my gosh, I cannot. With my first birth, I did hypnobirthing. I have a midwife. This birth, I'm doing the exact same thing. And I'm like, oh, first birth went great. Second birth is gonna go great. And I'm just gonna keep telling myself that. But for me, it's all about being open to the possibilities, because one thing I've learned about motherhood is that A, it never goes the way you think it's gonna go. And B, anything can happen. So I've learned to just roll with it and to just see what happens. So that's what we're doing. This video is going to be talking about how to feel safe and comfortable when you give birth, because a lot of people feel like they need to fight their provider, fight their hospital, that they need to advocate for themselves. But what I would recommend is finding somebody that you align with so well that you don't feel like you need to fight for anything. They're fighting for you, that you guys are aligned and they know what you want and you trust them, and so everything goes well. Okay, cool. How do I do that? Which is why I made this video. So I am like obsessed with labor and delivery. I think it's fascinating. So I always recommend that people read this book. It's called Unmedicated Guide to Childbirth. Just read that book. But in the back are a lot of these questions. I added a couple, I took out a couple, but that's where this information is coming from. Unmedicated Guide to Childbirth. Read it. It will just make you feel better about labor and delivery, no matter what happens. And that's the most important thing, I think, is just to be open to whatever. I also just created a birth plan, and I'm selling that on my website. So it's like 13 pages where you go through and you probably learn about some of the options and be like, what is that? I don't even know what that is. So that you're prepared, so that when you go in and they tell you they're gonna do something, you're like, wait, I don't want that because I looked this up. You don't want to just show up day up and be like, here's my laminated birth plan, please read it. You want to talk to your doctor or your midwife or your doula or whoever is helping you deliver and make sure that they're like, yeah, cool, those things sound good. And that they're not like, oh, delayed cord clamping? That tells you that you probably want to find a different provider. And this is why I kind of am making this video, because with my first birth, my midwife didn't show up. She wasn't able to be there. And so I got some random OB in this hospital who was phenomenal. I'm in between pushes going, I don't want an episiotomy. And she's going, I'm not gonna give that to you unless it's an emergency. I want delayed cord clamping. And she's like, that's standard practice here. And I'm telling her like the requests for the eye goop and the vaccines and that I want immediate skin to skin. And she was just like, yep. I was already doing hypnobirthing, so I'm sure she knew a lot of the requests that I had. I think a huge part of that is interviewing your provider, whatever they are, midwife, doula, OB, and asking questions on your hospital tour, because what the hospital wants is going to dictate kind of what happens as well. So there are a lot of these, and because there are so many, I made a guide. So I'll have a link if you want to just like print this off. This is free. I'm selling the birth checklist. The first questions are for the provider. The second questions are for the hospital. You do not have to ask your provider all of these things. You could talk to them about it in the first trimester just to make sure that the rest of your pregnancy is you're going to be on board with your provider. You also don't have to like bring these questions to your hospital, but you could. Let them go through first and give you a lot of the information and kind of get the vibe for the hospital, and then ask them the questions. So these questions are specifically for, I guess, hospital births. Some people are doing home births. A friend of mine who's a doula said, give birth wherever you feel the safest. So if you feel safest at home, do it there. If you feel safest in a hospital, do it there. I felt safer in a hospital, and I'm not like a doctor hospital person, but I was like, look, I'm gonna try and do my thing as much as I can on my own, but if something goes wrong, I want to be in a place where I can get immediate help. And you might have different or more questions than these, but these are just kind of like a baseline of things that you can ask. So let's just get started. So I wrote these down as thoughts, so they're a little bit out of order. I'll put them in better order as far as like chronological of what you should talk about prior, during birth, and like afterwards. But for this video, they're gonna be a little scattered. So you can ask them their background on their education, find out what certifications they have, where they went to school if you want to. Usually you can find that out online. Just ask them their background. I mean, if they're working in a hospital setting, they probably have some qualifications, but maybe this is like for a midwife if you are doing a home birth. Ask them how many women are due around the same time. Let's say they are only working with 10 women and all 10 women are giving birth during the month that you're also giving birth. If they say that, then say, okay, well, who's the backup if you're at another birth? Where I go, there's a couple of midwives and you have appointments with all of them. You don't just have one the whole time. So you kind of get to know a couple of the people that might show up to your birth. With mine, I got an OB that I'd never met before who is an angel. That way you can kind of know like who's the backup if you're not going to show up. Ask them their thoughts and their tools for inducing labor. Start with, if I go over 40 weeks, what do we do? And just see what they say. Some people say it's up to you, which it should be up to you, depending on your situation. Everything's different. But like, do you want to do a membrane strip? Do you want to wait? Do you want to do nothing? I have a friend that went to 43 weeks. She didn't have many midwives that were willing to support her at that point. It's your option of what you want to do. So ask them like, how long do we get to wait? What are my options for that? Can I wait to 42 weeks? Do we start doing things at 41 weeks? Can we start doing things at 40 weeks if I'm like done? And what are those things? So that's in my birth checklist, the different options for induction, because there's some that will like, you can put a balloon in your cervix to open it up. You can strip membranes. You can put some gel to start induction. Like there's lots of different options. So kind of figuring out what they do, what you want. While you're in labor, what are the pain management tools that are offered? Do they know what spinning babies is? Do you know what spinning babies is? There's different positions that you can be in to help assist with labor. Do they have a tub or a shower? Hydrotherapy, being in the water, is second to an epidural. So I was in the tub, but you can also just get in the shower and just have the shower running on you in a chair or whatever. Is there a peanut ball? Is there a swing? Like, is there an epidural? Do you have gas? What are the tools available to help you with pain management? Depending on what they say, will tell you if you're aligned with them, no matter what you want. Do you offer postpartum visits? I need to ask my provider this. I think because I birth in a hospital, we don't do home visits, but you do have a postpartum visit, which is 6 weeks after delivery. Mine with my daughter, because of COVID, was virtual. I had a 6-week virtual postpartum visit, and that was it. So asking what kind of postpartum support either your midwife, doctor offers, or like what they can recommend. I'm looking into a postpartum doula this time who like comes and helps with breastfeeding and helps clean and is that extra support that you hire to come into your home and help. Asking them about a doula. Are they open to a doula at birth? Like doulas are not allowed to give medical advice, in Minnesota at least. So you don't want your doula and your provider fighting. You want them to be working with you together. So you also want to talk to your doula about like, what are you going to do if the doctor says something that is not on my birth plan? Like, are we going to go with what the doctor says, or are you going to kind of advocate hard or loosely? Again, if you find a provider you like, you shouldn't be like fighting against them. They should be on your team. In labor, can you eat and can you drink? For me, I had a chia squeeze pouch. So I didn't have to have spoons, I didn't have to use my hand stuff, just open it up and like fed me like a little gerbil in the tub. I was eating this thing, but it gave me a little bit of energy. I've also been reading that bone broth can be super helpful during labor. I don't know the logistics of that. Like, do you just drink it cold? I'm not sure. Maybe look that up, but I've heard that bone broth is like a really good thing to have during labor. I wasn't hungry. I didn't go for any solids, but at one point I was like, yeah, I think I want one of those squeezers. So I actually am gonna pack my hospital bag. I'll be making a video about that. Snacks are definitely something for me and for Seth, especially for Seth, because with my first labor, getting to the end there where we needed to go to the hospital, and Seth was like, I'm gonna go run up and grab some snacks. And I was like, what? And he was gone for like 30 minutes. And when he got back, I was like, it's go time, buddy. He was packing the snacks, packing his bag, and we were leaving. Anyway, also in labor, can you have intermittent monitoring? So some people prefer to have the monitor on their belly the whole time to know that baby's doing fine. I did not want that. I wanted to be able to be in the tub. I wanted to be able to walk around if I wanted. I wanted to be able to move freely and have intermittent monitoring. Is there a time limit on labor? So this is kind of similar. It's typical between the transition of going from your house to the hospital that things kind of stall because you're in the zone, you're working it, and then you have to like answer some questions, fill out some paperwork, get into the hospital, get on your bed. Things can slow down a little bit, which is fine. You can get right back in the groove of it, but if it starts to extend out, is there a point where they're like, okay, your water's been broken for X amount of hours. We need to now do some more induction. We need to do a C-section. Like, is there a limit? And what are the parameters of that, I would ask. Can we do immediate skin to skin? Baby comes out, baby comes up. My daughter's cord was super short, so she made it to like my belly. We waited for the cord to stop pulsing, and then we cut it. Seth cut it. I don't know where I was. I didn't know that. I was like, you cut the cord? He's like, yeah, it was super hard to cut. I was like, wow, that's cool. And then can you do delayed cord clamping? Are they cool with that? I feel like a lot of people are cool with that. That's also a question you can ask. If I have a C-section, can I have delayed cord clamping? Like, what are the rules on that? How often do you deliver unmedicated births, and how often do you have C-sections? I think that's a very valid question to ask. What are the numbers? What's typical with what you do? How often do you give episiotomies? Really cut you to make more space for the baby to come out. Ideally, you tear naturally because your skin, because it's like this, can heal better than if it's like this clean cut. It's harder for it to heal. But obviously, if it's an emergency, get that baby out. But just asking like how they feel about episiotomies. Can I choose birth position and location? Is it okay that I'm on all fours if that's what feels good? Is it okay that I'm standing and squatting? Is it okay that I'm on the toilet? Is it okay that I'm in the shower? Is it okay that I'm in the tub? Do I have to be on my back in order to labor? Because your tailbone tips up like that, it's not optimal. Being on your back is not optimal for mom. Super great for the doctor because they can see what's going on, they can mitigate any sort of risk. It's not the best positioning for you. In fact, if you're on your back, you want your knees together and your heels out, and it opens up your pelvis a little bit more. My midwife was like, yeah, you can labor however you want unless you're in the tub. If you're in the tub, we need you on your back. That's just something that I'm gonna have to figure out. I'm signing the paperwork to be able to birth in the tub, but I'm not married to it. I want all the tools available. Because when I was laboring in the tub and I was like, I think I need to push, they checked me and they were like, yep, you're dilated, you need to get on the bed. I was like, excuse me. What? I was like in my hypnobirthing world. I was in the water. It was helping me with the pain. And then they're like, you need to get out. And I was like, how am I going to get out? I'm wet. I'm pretty sure I was naked. This is ridiculous. Well, they got me there and I was on my side for a little bit, and then they were like, oh, you need to go on your back. And I was like, I can't go on my back. I'm on my side. This is working really well for me. And they were like, baby's heart rate is dropping. And I was like, okay. And I flipped over to my back to labor on my back, which ended up being fine. But just asking them, are you comfortable with me giving birth however or wherever, or what are the restrictions there? Asking them if it's common for them to use forceps or the vacuum, just to know, like, what is this common practice for you? Do you typically use this? How often are they in the room? I asked my midwife that, and she said that she just reads the room. She's like, if you guys are cooking and you're doing great, I will leave you alone. I'm not gonna come in there and try and chat with you. I'm just gonna let you do your thing. Some moms need like this like coaching one-on-one, and she's like, so that I'm in there a lot and I'm like helping them and guiding them through it and giving them options. I was like, that's a great answer. Thank you. And then she said, if I'm in there and I'm chatting away and you're like, you need to stop chatting, please just say that to me, because sometimes I read it wrong. So if that's happening, just say, hey, can we just have some time alone? I will not be offended. This is your birth. I'm out. And I was like, this is why I'm so happy to have you. Now let's do the hospital questions. There are a lot less hospital questions. So ask the hospital, if it's important to you, do you have showers and tubs to labor in? My hospital did, and they were like, we don't fill them up until you actually get here. So I'm calling, I'm like, all right, we're on our way, fill up the tub. And they were like, we don't fill it up till you get here because the cleaning process afterwards is extensive. And as soon as water hits the tub, we have to do that cleaning process. So we're gonna have you come in, make sure that you are staying, because you might come in and we're like, no, you're not, you're 2 centimeters dilated, you gotta go home. And then get you settled and then get the tub going. And I was like, fine. But just to know that they had it was like really important. I'd rather have it and not need it than want it and not be able to have it. Again, in the hospital, can I birth on the toilet, in the shower? The toilet's called the dilation station because think about it. You sit on the toilet when you have to go to the bathroom and you relax your pelvic floor and you're like trained. That's where you do that. Your body goes, oh, I know what to do here. Relax my pelvic floor. Hence dilation station. Some people get on there, don't want to get off, want to have their baby there. It's up to you. And then asking the hospital, what pain management tools? Do you have gas? Do you have epidurals? Do you have a peanut ball? Do you have a birthing ball? What are the tools that the hospital provides while you're in labor? Can I walk around? Like with the COVID restrictions, is my partner allowed to be with me? Can I have a doula? And that might change. Like ours keeps changing. Now we're in green, before we were in yellow. How many people can be with you? That all changes. So just kind of learning those things. asking them their cesarean rate. How often do you give C-sections here? If you're going for a natural birth, if you're going for a scheduled C-section, great. Ask them if there's options in there. Can I have a clear sheet so I can see my baby being born if that is something you want? Can we have music playing? Can the lights be dim? This is in the birthing checklist, but or the labor check, birth plan checklist. Can everybody on the team introduce themselves? You still have options even with a C-section. Can I still do skin to skin immediately after baby is born? Etc., etc., etc. Will baby be able to be roomed in? So will baby be with me or my partner at all times? And what are your securities for that? I remember our hospital is very big on telling us your baby will get a bracelet, and that bracelet, something about the doors, they couldn't go out unless, I don't know, there's a security measure so that somebody couldn't walk out with your baby. And then as far as providers go, my midwife said if a hospital, because I asked her, I was like, I'm on social media and a lot of people ask how do you find a hospital that is more holistic minded? And she said if the hospital has midwives on staff, they're going to have more of these things be procedure, delayed cord clamping, low episiotomy rates, different things like that if that's something that's interesting to you. Do they allow doulas? And how does that work with support people? So this list is going to help you align with your provider and make sure that you guys are on the same page. And I told my midwife, I was like, I wanted a midwife because I wanted somebody who was kind of hippie. And she's like, that's not why I am a midwife. I'm not that hippie. I just want to support the mother in however she wants to birth, and that's why I became a midwife. She's like, my favorite birth I had no intervention with. She was on a rocking chair and she was giving birth, and at one point I was like, do I help? Do I not help? It didn't help because the mom didn't ask for help. And in the next push, the whole baby came out and she did the whole thing. And I was like, I did my job as a midwife there by not intervening and just letting mom do her thing. These questions are going to help you find the provider that you feel the safest with. That's all I have to say about that. I just want people to feel supported in their birth and not fear going into the hospital or whatever because they think that they need to fight with the hospital or their provider. So obviously things can happen, but making sure that you align with the people who are supporting you will ease a lot of your tension or ease a lot of your stress, knowing kind of what's going on as well. And some people are like, I don't care about any of this. I am definitely somebody who's obsessed with labor and delivery, and my sister's like, I don't know, I just did whatever they said. And I'm like, okay, cool. If that's what makes you feel comfortable, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying you need to ask all these questions, but if you're trying to do unmedicated birth or you just want to know, these are some questions to help. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions that you'd like to add, please add it below, and then I will have a link to get this checklist below. Thank you guys all so much, and I'll see you next time. Mwah. Bye.